Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. How you doing? You feeling all right?
I feel good.
Do you feel pretty?
Oh, so pretty.
How about witty and wise?
How did you know? Man.
You've just seems like you've had a night of it, and that maybe you're just on fire. You're firing on, as they say, all cylinders.
It's like you're reading my thoughts.
Pretty, witty, and wise.
Yes, all of those things.
Do you mind? I just sort of jumped into it. We're just sort of doing it.
And by the way, I pity any boy who isn't me.
We are The Next Reel, and I'm Pete Wright, and that's Andy Nelson. Hi, Andy. Say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
And we spoil movies. Tonight's movie that we're going to spoil is 1985's Pale Rider. Clint Eastwood directing himself again. Yes. And we're very excited to do this. This is continuing our Richard Dysart series, and we get to talk about it. Dysart taking a little bit more of a role, I think, which we will talk about shortly. Absolutely. Until then, you should find us at thenextreel.com. You can read the blog stylings of the Goodly Sarmento on the blog there. You can catch up with all of our past episodes, browse by series, check out the film board, and, of course, from there you can connect to all of our various fine social platforms and join the conversation with us about movies.
And they can soon, can they yet? Am I speaking out of turn if I say that soon they will be able to have a direct link to see all the films we're going to be talking about in 2014?
Yeah, soon.
So maybe I'm speaking a little soon.
Well, it's been a busy week, Andy.
But they can at least go to our blog posting about it.
You can, and that'll take you over to the Letterboxd, and on our Letterboxd account we have all of our films, and you can connect to those. And if you haven't friended us over there, you can keep up with all of our episodes straight on Letterboxd, which is cool. So with that, my favorite part of the show, how did Andy versus the people go this week?
You know, our Instagram challenge is always fun, and I did good this week. Did you do good? I made it 3 pictures the last 2 weeks. It's been tricky, but
let no bones about it. You're coming back, is what you're saying. You've had a bit of a slump, and you're ready for a comeback.
I'm working on
Andy
that
Nelson,
comeback.
The comeback kid.
Yes, I think what I have to learn is planning the pictures very, very meticulously, so they're really abstract early in the week and only get clear by the last couple. Because apparently the third image that I posted with the train with a nice big star on the front is pretty obvious from 310 to Yuma, because Cameron Ryan nailed it. From that image, she's quickly between her and Steam Robot. They're quite the competitors. So
they are active.
I've got to work hard to really stump them.
You have some of these. Okay, Die Hard I had really right away. The Firm I had right away. Hope and Glory I had no memory of that. But 310 to Yuma. It's tough to. That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
like that's a tough one to beat.
But I mean, come on, a picture of a caboose by the mountains.
Yeah,
how are you gonna know?
I'm just saying. I actually didn't know it from the caboose on the mountains. I'm not even sure I saw that one. Yeah. Was that the first one you did?
That was the first one. The second one I did was a hand holding
the rifle. You know what? Rifle, yeah. Do you know what I thought? You know what I thought that was? Didn't you? Did you already do the Coward Robert Ford?
I didn't.
See, that's what I thought that one was. But I did get it on the train too.
I guess it's an obvious train.
It's an obvious train.
I mean, it's the titular train. It's the 310 to Yuma.
It is the 310 to Yuma
station. So. It does need to be kind of an important train.
That's awesome.
Yes, but congratulations to Cameron. She is entered into our Pony Prize contest.
I'm not kidding. This Instagram feed, the Next Reel Instagram feed is fantastic. It is so fantastic. You know what, people? If you are not following the Instagram feed, you must do this and get over there. The Instagram.com. If you do nothing else, follow this one, because it's like it's like you can see the whole movie in 7 shots.
And there are some strange images that pop up from time to time. It's like, oh, that's a odd image.
Yeah, I think there were some, like, what did you do? The Seventh Seal? That one was crazy.
There's been some tricky ones. There have been. Old Boy had some pretty
Old
trippy
Boy was so creepy. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, I look forward to. Are you already ready for this week? Do you know what's coming?
I'm ready. I got everything ready to go.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Pony Prize, and let's see. Do we have anything else to tell the people?
I think we've told them everything there is to tell.
Told them everything there is. Then let's talk trailers.
I have to say, I'm really excited about the trailer that I'm going to talk about. I'm really nervous about the film itself. I don't know if it's a film that I should be excited about because it's one of those where the trailer just like has so much going for it, and I just wonder if it's going to turn into something that just can't live up to what the trailer promises. It's called Knights of Badassdom, and it's a group of people who what is they called I can't remember those groups, but basically they dress up like
the Society for Creative Anachronism.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that's why I couldn't remember it because it's such a creative.
The SCA. Didn't you have like the life-size chessboard at your? Didn't you see that?
I missed that. But it is basically a movie that follows a group of these people as they play in their games and it just participate in all sorts of wonderful nonsense. And one of the characters, played by Steve Zahn, accidentally, as he's moving up in his, he's like the wizard character, and he's moving up to the next level, and so he gets this special wizard book, and he just randomly picks a page and reads a spell, and accidentally conjures up a demon from hell, a succubus, I believe, as he says in the trailer. So he and all of his friends, including Peter Dinklage, Summer Glau, Ryan Quanten, they all have to work to destroy the succubus before she destroys all of them.
Okay, so this movie looks so good. Okay, first of all, reasons I can't wait to see this movie. 1, Summer Glau.
Mm-hmm.
2, Peter Dinklage, who spends most of his time right now in a show being exactly this character in this alternate period universe,
right,
pretending to be this guy in this alternate period universe in a spoof. It's like he's spoofing himself, and he takes it so seriously. Epic. 3, Steve Zahn is exactly what I would imagine Andy Nelson would be like conjuring a succubus. I mean, I can't watch this trailer enough.
But don't you have that fear that it's going to turn into like My Name is Bruce, that one where the townspeople bring Bruce Campbell Bruce Campbell playing Bruce Campbell,
yes,
because he's so great in the Evil Dead movies and stuff, but they accidentally resurrect this monster in their town, and then the Bruce Campbell has to play kind of his movie character Bruce Campbell in order to stop this thing. I mean,
it's a little too meta happy.
It is really meta happy.
Too much.
And I hope that it doesn't go that route because it looks so good.
It does look so good. I can't take it.
Oh, very much looking
man.
To Knights of Badassdom.
Wow.
And that's actually getting a very limited release in this country. In fact, I think it's one of those releases where you kind of have to be... what is that website? It's one of those websites where you can go to and you can like get people to kind of vote for it to come play in your area. And so that is how people are getting it. Like, it's going to be screening here in the Phoenix area a couple times, I think, in the next couple weeks, because enough people voted to get it here. And so it's going to be playing in early February down here in Phoenix. It's I'm trying to find the name of that website that you can get it from. Tugg.com.
Available on demand and digital February 11th. Coming right up.
And then if you look at tugg.com, you can see if you can get it to come play in your area.
There you go. That's so good. I'm so excited for this movie. You know what? I'm going to buy it on iTunes. I don't even care. I'm not going to go. I just want to contribute to people making these kinds of movies.
Yeah.
I love the map. Awesome. Like if you go to the Knights of Badassdom-movie.com, they have the background after you watch the trailers, like the map, the Forest of Lost Souls, the Dead Meadows of Bodom, the Plains of Evermore.
That's a great moment of the trailer. These are the plains of Evermore. It pulls back and people are setting their pop-up tents up. Tis about to get medieval up in here.
Thy wait is over.
This could be something that turns into a guilty pleasure for somebody.
It could. It may already be. I haven't even seen it yet. I already feel so guilty. My trailer's different. My trailer comes out right around the same time, a couple of days later. On February 14th, we are introduced to Akiva Goldsman, starring Colin Farrell, Jessica Brown Findlay, Russell Crowe, with Winter's Tale. This looks like an ambitious film. Do you know what? You watched the trailer, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you watch the trailer, and the trailer looks like two movies.
Yeah.
You get that feeling? Like there's the back in time part, and then there's the future part, and then they all get mixed up together. It's like two movies that all these people are in.
It looks really, watching the trailer, it struck me as, wow, this is a story that's really going to do a lot, and I hope that they know how to pull it off.
Truly. A burglar falls in love for an heiress as she dies in his arms. When he learns that he has the gift of reincarnation, he sets out to save her. And, of course, played by Colin Farrell, I cannot stop thinking about Highlander with that accent. Plus, it's a reincarnation thing. It's like living for hundreds of years. And it seems like... I think at one point they actually say there can be only one.
Well, and it seems like, he's kind of this pawn character, and Russell Crowe seems to be more of an all-knowing bad guy character who knows about these people who kind of live across time. And it seems like who's the other opposite of Russell Crowe? Was it William Hurt? I can't remember.
Yes, William Hurt.
So I'm very curious to see how all this plays out. It's got an interesting cast. Like Jennifer Connelly is in it. Will Smith.
Yeah, in kind of weird places. Like they sneak up. Graham Greene, Lucy Griffiths, Kevin Corrigan, William Hurt, Kevin Durand, Russell Crowe.
Eva Marie Saint is in it.
Eva Marie Saint, yes. Let's see. Yeah, it's got a long cast list, and they are. So I don't know how they fit all these people in this film. This looks really big. I sort of can't believe we haven't talked about it. I'm glad that we're talking about it now because it really is just coming out in a couple of weeks. So get ready to see this one. It looks like it'll be an ambitious theater-going experience.
Yeah, just in time for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I hope they find each other. Kind of spoil it by saying that she dies in the blurb.
Well, he's going to come find her.
We hope. Who knows?
Is this okay? So Akiva Goldman, this is his feature directorial debut.
Yes,
he's mostly known as a writer.
Yeah.
Well, in his screenwriting, I mean, he's won. Yeah. What did he win his Oscar for? Was it Beautiful Mind? Is that what he won?
Well, no, it wasn't iRobot, I don't think.
Wah, wah.
He did, he's got 15 writing credits. He's got 22 producer credits, a lot of production credits. He was a producer for the entire run of Fringe, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. All the paranormal movies that hit Jonah Hex. Not sure if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, he's been producing and writing a lot, but yeah, this is his first feature film, as you say, debut.
Interesting.
Yeah, this will be interesting. So I'm very curious about this film. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
February 14th. And with that, shall we?
Let's do it.
Warner Brothers will be proud to bring you the next great American Western. Clint Eastwood, Pale Rider. They came out of the mountains to ravage and rape a small mining village. Suddenly, a stranger appeared, and hell followed with him. Some called him preacher. Others called him gunfighter. Clint Eastwood, Pale Rider.
This is Clint Eastwood. Do you know how many, without looking, can you tell me how many films in which Clint Eastwood has directed himself? Can you tell me that?
Do
you know right now? 5, 4, 3, 2, go.
No, 12.
Wow. Really?
I just threw that out there. Really? Is it 12?
No.
Oh.
No, and let me tell you this.
20.
In 1985, when Pale Rider came out, Pale Rider was his 10th in 1985.
Wow.
That was the 10th time he had directed himself. Does that change your tune at all?
Yes.
All right.
How about 30?
Okay, now you're just messing with me. No, it's actually 22. 22 films from 1971 to 2008. He started Play Misty for Me was his first, and then Gran Torino. Actually, yeah, Gran Torino was his most recent because he didn't direct the baseball one, right?
No, he just started.
He just started in that one.
Yep.
So, man, this guy knows how to direct himself. That's what I'm thinking when I'm watching Pale Rider.
He does, especially in westerns. I think there's something about the way that he understands how to play a western character, how to move as that western character, how to frame the shots of himself as a western character that, and in a way, I think has really defined what we all think of as kind of that lone cowboy.
And I think we'd all agree also in Firefox.
and Firefox. And maybe Honky Tonk.
I'm just messing with you. I hated Firefox. That was a terrible movie. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, talk about a guy who defined an era of Western films. This was this is, in all the sort of similarities that get sort of conjured up as you think about westerns of this period, and he even they're similar to his own films in some cases. This film it plays the icon superbly.
Yeah,
and ironically, you don't see a lot of Clint Eastwood in this movie. I mean, it's kind of deceiving that it's a Clint Eastwood film, and yet he. There's less of him than I would have expected. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and interesting the way that comes to play in the context of the story. He is kind of
talk about this story a little bit because there's talk about this. This is the Western superhero origin story. Western ghost story. How do you talk about this story? Give the people a little review.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a small group of miners that are basically getting bullied by the big corporate miner who is in the town nearby, who essentially runs and owns the town nearby, who uses a method, kind of a newfangled method of mining called hydraulic mining, where they basically blast the sides of the hills with high pressure water to just basically erode everything, and then that's how they pan for gold in a very massive scale. I mean, it's like raping the land to get the gold out of it.
Well, that may be a little extreme.
You think? I don't know.
This is the feature cinema debut of hydraulic fracturing. Or fracking. They were fracking in 1985.
Projecting back to I don't know, 1885.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. The and a little girl's dog gets killed in this raid on their mining town, and she says a prayer hoping that someone will come save them. And in rides this pale rider, and a very mysterious figure who helps these people out, helps bring them together. And, long story short, kind of brings an end to the problem of this corporate miner, and is able to help these town people succeed. In the process, though, there's a wrong that he rights when this corporate miner brings in this marshal, who essentially is no more than just kind of a hired assassin, who brings his own men, his 6 men. So it's like these 7 figures who come in, and it turns out that there is some history between the Stockburn, the head of this group, and Preacher, the Pale Rider, and that all gets resolved nicely. But that's essentially kind of what the story is. It's kind of this Western tale of righting the wrong that this corporate mining company is doing on this little town.
All right. So, what stands out for you when you watch this film? As it, I kept thinking to myself as I'm watching it, this film does a good job for me of testing my emotional connection to these characters. Right. It seems like I am on a bit of a roller coaster in terms of who I want to succeed from scene to scene. And I surprised myself.
Interesting.
I surprised myself, and I think he did a very good job. How does this movie play out for you after? I should ask you, when's the last time you watched it?
I actually watched it not too long ago. I'd say maybe 6 months ago.
Oh, recently. It's been years for me.
Yeah, before that it had been for me as well. But I wanted to just kind of refresh my memory on some of my Clint Eastwood westerns, and so gave it a rewatch. This film has always been an interesting one for me that I've always really enjoyed. I've never really gotten too involved with until I think Stockburn shows up. And that's when I really start getting much more invested in the story and everything that's going on. I think some of that is that maybe I've foolishly always missed the fact that he's a ghost. I mean, which, it's not ever really spelled out, but I always have found it very kind of this strange religious moment when the young girl, Megan, is saying this prayer. She's played by Sidney Penny, and she's saying this prayer, and as she's praying, we cut to the mountains, and we cut to the snowy mountains, and we see him kind of ride out. And then later, when she's talking with her mother, and she's a very Bible knowledgeable girl. She really kind of is always reading the Bible and looking at it. And she's reading a passage from Revelations, I believe, about the Pale Rider. And as she's reading that in rides, I think the quote is, "When the Lamb opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, 'Come.' I looked, and there before me was a pale horse, and on it was a rider, and his name was Death, and hell followed behind him." And as she's saying that, he kind of rides up, which kind of alludes to the fact that this man, there's something more to him and a greater reason as to why he's here. Now, I don't know. I guess I just never kind of twisted it in my head to looking at it from the supernatural perspective, that this man actually was a ghost and he's here to kind of avenge his death. But I mean, that's when you look at it that way, it's like, oh, it's completely obvious. I should have always seen it that way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I was thrown by that as well, because that's not a sequence. I think, and it's a pivotal sequence, but it's not a sequence. I'm speaking of when she's reading the Bible. It's a pivotal sequence, obviously, in the overall dramatic arc of the film, but it's not one that sticks with me.
Well, and I think part of that is because it's read in kind of a dramatic way where bad stuff has been happening and all this stuff. And okay, yes, he's sitting on a pale horse, and it kind of fits that. It just, I guess I always looked at it as there's foreboding words that kind of allude to the fact that this character, his name is Death. Okay, he's a cowboy. He's here to kind of kill the bad guys.
Right.
I've never kind of twisted and looked at it in the other more supernatural way. And it's definitely an interesting thing to look at. And oddly enough, as I was reading up on this, people are talking about how High Plains Drifter is the same thing, about a ghost that comes and avenges his death. And I'm like, I don't remember him being dead in that one either. How did I miss all this? And then here I am going, oh, and then I watch The Natural, and I'm like, oh, he's clearly dead. What's going on? Why doesn't anyone else get it? I'm just looking at all these movies wrong, I guess.
That's fantastic. And that was the one I was talking about, the similarities to other films, and I think it's so interesting, and I'm almost sure it's because when I first saw this film, I was not of an age to interpret it that way. Yeah. I don't know if I was too cynical. Maybe the first time I saw it, I just didn't see it. It was right in front of me, and I just didn't see it. Even in the final shootout sequence, right? You talk about, when Stockburn shows up. So the hired gun and his henchmen, his 6, duster-clad deputies show up, and they brutally, assassinate one of the town's members.
Yeah, right.
And then there's this sequence where it's the Pale Rider up against, or the preacher up against the deputies and Stockburn. And at this point in the film, we've already seen that there is acknowledgement. Stockburn acknowledges that he knows who this guy is, and the preacher acknowledges that he knows who Stockburn is, even though they have not directly confronted one another. And so this is the big sequence. And
and I think just to be fair, I think Stockburn suspects it. I don't think he knows it, because I don't think he wants to believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably true. But see, I think the way I characterize that is exactly how I saw it the first time, right? It was that, like, of course, he acknowledged it. They must have had a run-in in the past, right?
Yeah, right.
And so then there's this little cat and mouse thing, right, going on, where the preacher is just gunning down these guys. He surprises them. First he's, around a corner. Then he's in a box. Then he's in the water. Then he's, there. It's just full of these, this very quick kind of one-off as he gets rid of all the 6 deputies. And then there is the standoff, right, the stare down. Mm-hmm. And the preacher comes out and he picks up his hat, which has been left in the middle of the street. And instead of doing a draw, what we'd normally expect as a draw in this sort of a film, they stare at each other, and he walks straight up and stares Stockburn in the eye. Right? Mm. I still don't think I mean, I got it. They have this exchange where Stockburn says, you, and obviously he's surprised. Mm-hmm. But I still, at that point, didn't get it, that he was surprised because he was looking at a ghost.
Right.
Is that crazy?
Well, I think it's because of Eastwood's directing style. I don't think he's the sort who's going to, put kind of a glow around the character or anything like that. I mean, that clearly just is not his style. He has a much more refined hand when it comes to that sort of stuff.
I think he does too, and that's one of the things I love so much about this sequence, though. And that's actually the sort of the punchline to my experience. I feel like it's nuts in hindsight that I didn't get it until I actually, I had to watch really closely. But what I like so much about it is that he doesn't treat this in any sort of a heavy-handed fashion. I mean, there are parts of this film that I find just sort of vaudevillian. The initial hickory beating, where he takes on the LaHood thugs in the street protecting Hull. In the opening sequence, he beats down these 3 guys or 3-4 guys with a like an axe handle,
right?
And he does it with great flourish, and it's cut in such a way that would lead you to believe that Clint Eastwood is probably not that adept with being all flourishy with a hickory stick. And so, they cut these little sequences together mostly of just him beating these guys up. And I find those, the film moves in and out of that sort of style of editing, right? Of kind of visual storytelling, this kind of campy style. Yeah. And then it goes into this more sort of sober approach that we see in the end of the film, which I like so much. And I feel like that gives this film visually much more weight than I get from some of the sequences earlier on.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think there's just going back to that last moment real quick. It always has struck me that why does Stockburn wait so long to pull his gun? And I think looking in retrospect, when you know that Eastwood is a ghost and he's coming to kill him, it's not until Stockburn sees the whites of his eyes when Preacher lifts his hat a little bit and you can kind of see the whites of his eyes, that Stockburn really connects. And he tries to pull his gun out, but it's almost like he's so paralyzed that he can't get his gun out. It's like he's kind of paralyzed with fear in a way.
Right.
And interesting, when earlier in the film, when Preacher first arrives and Hull and his I guess is not really a fiance, but his girlfriend and her daughter are taking care of him, he's changing his clothes and he takes his shirt off and you see these scars on his back from bullet holes. And they're in a pattern very much similar to the pattern that when he kills Stockburn at the end. It's essentially the same pattern. Plus, then he also hits him right between the eyes, much the way that Stockburn finished off Spider earlier in the film. And so it is very interesting the way all of that plays out, but all done in a way where it really kind of respects the audience and nothing hits you over the head with obviousness, Nothing is spelled out, even the history between Preacher and Stockburn, or just any history of Preacher, period. Like, where did this guy come from? Why is he a preacher? How is he also this great gunman, et cetera, et cetera? There's all these questions that are raised, but they're never really answered. It's left very vague. And unlike even something like High Plains Drifter, where we get a lot of the flashbacks as the film comes to its conclusion, we see kind of how he was strung up and all of that sort of stuff. We don't get that here. We don't get any of those flashbacks. So it's left very much kind of in our heads, and we kind of take with it what we will and, make something out of it that everyone has their own story in their head from it, I guess. And I really like the way that he builds the story that way.
Well, you think about it this way. And I think that comparison is apt. If you had taken out all of the flashbacks of High Plains Drifter, would the story have stood up for you? Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm asking that as a baited comparison because I think it's one of the things I like so much about this film that if you took out all of the suspicion that you have that he's a ghost, that this is a standoff between the living and the dead, the movie still stands up.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And I think that's why, so do you see my comparison with High Plains Drifter? Like, I don't think the movie wouldn't be the same film. It would not, like, we need more of that backstory.
In High Plains Drifter.
High Plains Drifter. And
yeah, we don't have that. I guess there's not the illusions, kind of the biblical illusions and the things that kind of give us that sense that, oh, okay, this guy's dead. I mean, I don't think if you cut out the biblical illusions, earlier in Pale Rider, I don't think it would have been obvious at all. Well, clearly it wasn't obvious for me, but I don't think you would have been able to ever deduce that this guy was a ghost.
Well, that's what makes this such an interesting movie to digest. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That we could see this movie and really enjoy it as a Western Western revenge fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the roving drifter is such an iconic character in storytelling that's enough if you tell it in a visual enough fashion, right? I mean that it's enough for me to know that there is a guy out there in the plains where if I'm in trouble, there's a chance I'll be rescued, and I won't ever get to know why, but I feel better and safer knowing that there are these people out there, these vigilantes out there that are protecting the good of the innocent, right? And that's enough of a story for me. And in this case, adding the supernatural element, that gives you something to jaw on. Does it make it a better story or a worse story or a more interesting story? For me, it makes it more interesting. It makes it more interesting because I see another layer of it that I didn't see, 15 years ago, the first time I saw this film.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost want to just go watch it again and look at it from that perspective and go, okay, really, I like the way that they develop all of that over the course of this film, and the way that he interacts with people, and the way that he appears and reappears or disappears, and in ways to kind of bring people together and help this group find a way to basically become kind of a cohesive team that can work together to oppose this, LaHood and his thugs.
So let's talk a little bit about LaHood.
Yes.
Our man Dysart.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
He can be just an evil bastard. Boy.
He's good.
He really is. He is good.
We've talked about other movies of his. We've obviously seen other movies of his. And I still, with that longhorn mustache, I actually had to, I had to look it up. I was like, wait, really? This is Richard Dysart? Really? What I think is so interesting about the way he plays this, and we have to remember that this was 1985. It's since this film. This is one of the sort of genetic precursors of many of the performances of the corporate villain, right?
Yeah,
and to see him play this role as the corporate villain, and again, he's like Clint Eastwood. Like, we don't get a lot of him on screen,
right?
Much of this is the story of Hull and thugs and the townspeople. But when we do see him, we see this really interesting sort of a roller coaster of an arc. First, he comes in and he's the sophisticated, he gets off the train, he's the sophisticated business owner. And then we see that he's, the way he orders his son, played by the young Chris Penn, and other thugs, as he orders them around on how to, how they need to take care of these things. We can tell that there is a thuggish behavior, and he wants to use force to get these people out of their off their land so that he can develop it as a mine. And then when he first meets with the preacher, when he invites the preacher into his office, we see him come unhinged over the writ of law.
Right.
And his voice gets all high, and he just goes crazy, right? Yeah. And the best line for me of his, when he stops, he recovers his composure, and he says, "I've negotiated, I've tried to talk it up, and I've just come up short." When he comes to terms with the fact that he's going to use violence again, and he's going to do it with a smile on his face.
Yep.
I thought he was cool.
He's evil. He's evil. And I think one of my favorite moments with him is when Stockburn and his men are confronting Spider, who has found a huge nugget of gold. I mean, it's just ridiculously large. I mean, the size of somebody's head large.
Right.
He is gone to town. He's drunk as a skunk, and he basically goes in the street to, basically yell at LaHood and just tell him, I can be great too, and all that sort of stuff. Stockburn and his men come out and have this. I mean, it's a really intense and painful scene as they, kind of do that whole dance thing, and they shoot the ground and make Spider kind of jump around. And then Spider is so mad, he pulls his gun and is ready to just kind of lay it into these guys, and they just go to town on him and fill him with lead. I mean, literally, it's almost like it doesn't stop to the point where every bullet that they have is in his body, basically. And there's a shot of LaHood, Richard Dysart, standing inside in the shadows, and you just get this like sliver of light on the side of his face as he's looking down. And we know from Spider saying that he knew Coy LaHood, Richard Dysart's character, from long ago when they were young men. And, so there's this history between these two characters. And LaHood just stands there in the shadows, letting these guys gun down this guy that he knew from his youth. Doesn't do anything about it. It's just business to him, and it just is a haunting image of this character using these evil people to do his evil deeds.
Oh, that's true.
That's a great image and a great moment.
Wonderful visual, and it is punctuated by a really disappointing image when he finally gets shot and is killed. And he doesn't fall all the way out the window.
I don't know.
It just makes me mad, man. Just fall out the window. Come on.
To me, there's something worse about not falling out the window. All I can think about is giant shards of glass embedded in
his gut.
Yeah. Ow. No thanks.
It's fantastic. He runs a tight ship in this little town that summarily undoes itself.
Yeah.
Who else do you want to talk about? We should definitely talk about Michael Moriarty.
Yeah, he's an interesting character that I think works really well in the context of this film, even if I don't always, kind of connect with his character. I don't know, there's something interesting about him as a presence that I just don't always connect with sometimes, but there's something about him in this film where he feels like he is of this era.
Let me tell you what's really important about Michael Moriarty is a return to Salem's Lot. Am I right?
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, he was. Who was he in that?
He was the anthropologist. He was the main guy who came back to Salem's Lot with his son to discover that Salem's Lot was now a vampire Disneyland. Right, and he was the whole story was about how amoral he is, and so how he won't get involved with anything that he sees, and so there's like these horrible atrocities going on around him, and he won't mess with it. And that's how I actually remembered Michael Moriarty, not his otherwise robust catalog of film and television roles, but Return to Salem's Lot. When I saw him in this movie, I was surprised because I thought that's the guy from A Return to Salem's Lot.
He's been in a lot of horror movies. That does seem to be kind of a direction he's done, and a lot of TV stuff. But I mean, looking through his horror stuff, I mean, a lot of stuff from my childhood that I saw. I don't know if it speaks highly or not, but The Stuff, Troll, aside from Return to Salem's Lot, just those are things that I remember straight out of my youth. That Q, he was in Q, the giant Quetzalcoatl, in New York City movie. So he's one of those guys that definitely has that face and has been in lots of stuff. And I do like him. There's something about him in this, and maybe it's just kind of the way he smiles sometimes. I feel like he's not quite in it or something. I don't know.
Well, we're definitely. I totally agree with you. There was a period, I just have to get this out, where he came unhinged and tried to sue Attorney General Janet Reno. Do you remember this? Did you hear about this?
I don't remember this at all.
She said that Law and Order, he was on Law and Order at the time, and that it was offensively violent, and so he said he was going to sue her and claimed that she wanted to censor shows, and this is Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt, like Law and Order, but also fair quotes such as Murder, She Wrote. He accused Law and Order executive Dick Wolf of not taking his concerns seriously, and that the executives caved into Reno's demands, and he was actually kicked off the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it just sort of came unhinged, and that I think describes kind of my expectation of him after seeing him in this role. And not that those two things are connected, but in this role, what he does so well is he plays a simple and passionate character.
Yeah.
Right? He is a simple person, and he is obsessively passionate about what he is doing.
Right.
And he does it in his own way. I think that, one of the things I like, one of the sequences I like so much in this movie is the campfire sequence. When the 20 guys, the 20 men of the mining colony are having their conversation about whether or not they're going to accept the $1,000 a head buyout offer from LaHood, or if they're going to fight and stay to stake their land and their claim. And the yays are really mustered by these two characters. It was Hull and what was the other guy?
Spider.
That was Spider, the not drunk yet Spider.
Right.
And so they have this conversation they're talking about, and the way they sort of phrase their affinity for the place is a long and just wonderfully heartfelt portrayal of kind of love of home. And I found myself really moved by that sequence in the film, and it was much longer, I think, than certainly than was needed to get the point across. But it made it a much more sort of artful communication of that sequence, and I really liked the way he let that scene breathe.
Yeah, and it's a really touching scene where, in retrospect, you can see Preacher's hand in kind of working to help those people find a way to come together.
Yeah, as he's standing, Preacher, I should say, is standing behind them in the dark, and you don't really know that until a little bit into the sequence, as he's asked to come forward. And I suppose I think maybe this sequence I should have known. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way he sort of plays the conversation is, it's delicate, and dare I say, sort of biblical.
Yeah, right.
But it was really it was very well done. It was a very dynamic sort of sequence.
Yeah.
So there's Michael Moriarty.
And just stepping aside from Michael Moriarty, but speaking specifically to this scene and the whole film, I think that Bruce Surtees' cinematography in the whole film is really, really just stunningly gorgeous. I mean, they shot this film up in I believe, the Sawtooth National Park or National Wilderness area up in Idaho. And the mountains in this film are truly just amazing to look at. Any of just the shots of them riding in the mountains and riding across the plains, I mean, really are just jaw-droppingly stunning. But then the way that Eastwood chose to light the film, and along with Bruce Surtees, it was very... I guess you could say kind of the time, where when you'd go inside one of the buildings, there was very little light inside. Most of the light came from the windows. Speaking of that shot of LaHood by the window when Spider's getting killed, just like this fire scene, there's so little light there. It's you're looking at kind of these faces that are kind of coming out in the firelight out of these black shadows. And it really is just a beautiful way to light this film. And in contrast with kind of the bright, snowy landscape that we get sometime, particularly when Preacher is riding across it, almost like kind of this heavenly ride that he's taking, it really kind of has a nice balance between the dark and the light in this film.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I think the lighting and the production design in general, the mining community and the mine itself, both LaHood's mine and the communities, the buildings, the structures are, as you say, of the time. It is a ragtag group that has set up home here, and making the inside as dark as they do. I think gives you a really special sense, and it makes the connection that they talk about to that place, I think, even more profound. Because on the same hand, you could say, how could you possibly have a connection to what you have there, which is very little, and yet what they're talking about is what they have there is this connection to to the mind. The speech that he gives is all about if we were farmers, we'd be planting seeds, but we're miners, so we dig, and this is our home. This is where we do what we do for our families, and I think the production design and the way they build the physical connection with the place is quite special.
I think another element that comes from that scene is a scene with very little dialogue. It's actually when Preacher first comes out to help Hull break this giant boulder that is in the creek, where Hull just kind of has this thing about him and the boulder. It's either going to kill me or I'm going to kill it, and because he feels there's gold under it, and Preacher comes out and starts banging away at it with a sledgehammer, and that is the moment where he's able to start bringing everybody together, and the town starts coming. And it's this really beautiful scene with no dialogue, just people as they kind of come down and start banging away at this rock. And it comes after a confrontation with Chris Penn and the ever fun to see on screen Richard Kiel.
I was just going to say that.
But it's this great kind of moment where people kind of come together, and it kind of lends to that same sort of feel, just like the conversation later that the group has. This is a moment where by action they are able to kind of come together and be as one again. Yes.
Again, you mentioned the sort of hand that he's just sort of holding through this community to bring them together. And we see Carrie Snodgress played the lady, Hull's
Sarah,
Hull's significant other, and she has a moment where she's when they think the preacher has left, and it turns out the preacher is off doing his own thing, but when they think the preacher has left, she has this bit where she says, I can't believe it was the preacher that was holding these people together. You really think that they're going to stay together now that he's gone? And you see him sort of come into his own confidence, in this sequence, and be sort of duly surprised when the preacher and he get to work together again. But it's a neat sort of sequence, the way that works.
Yeah, right. It is. Yeah. And I do like Carrie Snodgress in this. I think that she does a good job with the character. It's an interesting role. Something that we haven't talked about is the direct comparison that this film has with Shane, the film that came out decades before. This film, the story is so in line with that in so many ways. A town fighting a small group fighting kind of this larger evil group. A stranger comes in, helps them defeat it, even going through to the end where Shane rides off and the boy runs after him. Shane, we love you, Shane. It's the exact same end. It's amazing how repetitive this film is of the 1953 film. But I don't know. But there's elements to it that I think work so much differently. But one of them that is also repeated is the fact that Carrie Snodgress's character, Sarah, does kind of fall for this stranger that comes to town. Even though she's with Hull, there is this draw that she has to him. And it's an interesting character moment, and the way that ends up playing out to the point where it's really kind of alluded to. Maybe they have a night together, which kind of creeps me out if he is a ghost. But but hey, I don't know. There's something about the way that she plays it that just comes across just very straight. It's not maudlin at all. It's this even keel understanding of the way things are.
Right. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen Shane.
Me too. I was actually going to try to watch it before we recorded. I just didn't have a chance.
That was who was the stranger? Alan Ladd.
Alan Ladd was Shane, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming into town to stop
Who was
Jack
Palance? Was it Jack Palance who's the bad guy?
I can't
It's been
remember.
way too long.
It has been a long time. I need
He
to
was
watch
the
that.
yeah. It was Jack Palance was essentially the Stockburn character. Yeah. 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 The parallels are, well,
uncanny,
convincing.
Yeah.
And yet, an homage can be a satisfactory film in its own right.
Yeah, and I think they change it up enough that I don't really have any problems with it. I find it very rewarding.
What is enough, though? Right? I mean, if the substance of the film is the same and the characters can be essentially mapped to one another, what is it about this film that makes it unique enough to get past the obvious comparisons for you?
I guess it's, well, one, Clint Eastwood, and I think that there's something about the way that he plays a kind of that stranger character that we were talking about earlier, that works so well for him, and I'm always drawn to watching him do that. Whether it's those more silly moments where he's fighting everybody with the hickory handle, or the more serious standoff that he has with Stockburn at the end. All of that, I think, really works well for me, even though the story itself is essentially kind of a mapped out version of Shane. But I think the way that they modified that story to create this ghost story and this ghostly revenge story and this extra, like I said, I can't recall Shane very much. I can't remember if there is anything that is hinted at that had gone on between Shane and these bad guys in the past. For some reason, I don't recall. I don't think there was anything. I think Shane was just a good guy who happened to come into town and ended up helping them before he kind of headed off.
Right.
So I think that they found a way to develop the story a little more and give it a little more of a mysterious spin that, for me, makes it stand out on its own.
Yeah, okay. I buy that. I mean, again, it's been so long since I've seen it. For me, it's all about Eastwood.
Yeah.
As you said, I mean, it's all about Eastwood. I just like watching the way he moves on horses. And so my needs are modest. It's funny. As as I was researching around here, and I'm trying again back to this ghost thing. I'm trying to be sort of open-minded and say that there are a number of ways to interpret this. And then I run across this quote where Clint Eastwood says, "Preacher, quote, is an out-and-out ghost."
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right. If I had known that he said that when he was doing all the press for this film, I wouldn't have had to worry about it.
I know, but that's what's so funny, that over the years, the thing that comes out of it is that, if you don't know that, there's room to talk about this film. I think that's what's so interesting about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyhow, okay, what else do we need to talk about?
Back to Richard Kiel.
Yes.
I mean, come on, his
Richard Kiel, right?
His Jaws.
I'm sure he loves that.
And he's in a Western.
I know, on a horse.
And did you know he was entangled?
He was entangled. That's right. Yes. I was surprised to learn that he was still doing anything.
I was too.
Let alone something as recent as Tangled.
Yeah, but it excites me. It thrills me that he's still around and just doing things. I mean, now it's almost more he's just doing these like more meta types of roles, like Inspector Gadget, where he plays famous big guy with silver teeth.
Tangled was his most recent film. But it looks like he's not doing. He did some voice work in the James Bond video games.
Mm-hmm. When he's got
good to see him in there.
Sci-fi movie coming out supposedly later this year called Our Robot Overlords.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what sort of release that one gets.
Music. Can we talk about the music?
Well, before we do, I want to also just
whatever
bring
you
up
want.
Lovely Sidney
you
Penny.
You do your thing.
I'm going to.
All right. So the music. What? Are you talking?
Wow.
Sidney Penny, actress, star of soap operas.
and the Thornbirds. And can I just plug myself here?
She's my mom.
She's my mom. She's in Ambush at Dark Canyon, which is a movie that I worked on a couple years ago.
That was the thing. You've been posting about that a little bit.
That's right. It just came out on DVD. You can pick up your copy at Walmart. It's for sale at Walmart, and I believe it's streaming as well. So yeah, check it out. Ambush.
Did you meet her?
I did, in fact.
And how is she?
She's lovely. She's a wonderful, kind human being.
Say that again. Ambush at
Dark Canyon.
Ambush at Dark Canyon.
That's right.
She's
put a link in our show notes.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to clear up for the record. There is no way that she could be your mom because she is your age.
That's right. It would be a little awkward if she were my mom.
That's fantastic.
For a very strange birth.
She's
Look at the beautiful pregnant baby you just had.
No, she was good in this movie as a Bible thumping teen.
Well, and it is really kind of a creepy role because
when she throws herself at the dead preacher.
Because when you think about it, it's like these were times when people were marrying off their daughters when they were teenagers, when they were 14 or 15. And she is 14. She's soon to be 15. Her mom got married when she was 15, and she falls for this preacher and wants to basically kind of go away with him because he's a preacher. She's very much into the Bible. And there's some really interesting connection there that I think is a different twist to the Shane film, which is more of a father figure when Shane rides into town, because his father is gone, as I recall, and that's why the mom kind of falls for Shane, and then Shane rides off, and the boy is wanting Shane to kind of stay and be his dad and all this. There's something really interesting the way that they change up this character and make it this young girl who, in a way, his appearance and then disappearance is kind of a step that she needed in order to kind of grow up a little bit. And I think her goodbye to him at the end is a very touching goodbye that, there is some sense of maturity to it that I do really enjoy. And it's, I find that ending very touching.
I do too. I find it touching, particularly in the context of her anger toward him in the woods after she throws herself at him.
Right.
When she tries so hard to establish a romantic connection, and it's one that I think is risky in the film because it tests some cultural norms that I think even at the time were risky. She's pitching exploring sexuality out of wedlock, and his response as ghost preacher is just something that's kind of reserved for marriage. And so it is to see her as aggressive as she is on film, I think was an interesting take on this character. I particularly liked it.
Yeah.
And I thought it added a lot to their relationship and his relationship with the town when you think about, in hindsight, that he was drawn to the town by her as an answer to her prayer, if you look at it that way.
Right. And that's something that really stuck in my mind when I kind of learned that he was a ghost is, okay, so he was drawn to her because she's the one who has the prayer and brings him there. But there had to be something in the air, because I don't think he would have come necessarily if it wasn't for the coming of Stockburn. Because Stockburn is the reason that he comes. Stockburn is the evil that brought him down that he needs to destroy. And it's only because he kind of comes and these people won't leave that LaHood brings Stockburn.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could see this as a good and evil showdown. I mean, I don't. I mean, there's probably some parallel in the Bible that I'm missing that would totally describe this.
Probably. It is interesting, though, because when you think about it, okay, so she says her prayer and brings preacher to kind of avenge the town, or at least fight for the town. And when LaHood learns that these townspeople are coming together, it's almost like the same sort of thing. I mean, he doesn't have a moment where he sits down and prays, but essentially
it's a battle of the saviors.
Exactly. He has to go to his place where he's going to bring the other version of the preacher, which is Stockburn.
Right.
And so it's like these two warring factions bringing in their demigods to fight.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I'm going. And so I don't know that I would be able to say, why did the preacher answer this particular prayer? Was there something? I don't know that there's enough in the film to illustrate that, but it is a battle of good and evil, and that is at its sort of purest, kind of rawest point. That's what this film is trying to get at.
Absolutely.
Okay, can we talk about the music now?
Okay, sure.
Have you watched it? Go ahead.
No, there's one more actor.
I just want to...
What? Lennie Niehaus' music is great.
Do you know why? Do you know why I want to bring it up? Because have you watched the trailer for this film, the original 85 trailer?
I haven't.
Music is it's not the music obviously from the film, but it's a whole different vibe to it. I think the music in this really is fantastic. I think it is a wonderfully interesting score.
It's haunting.
Yes,
haunting score.
It is appropriately haunting, right? Yeah. I mean, there is some spooky orchestral stuff going on in this here Western. Is this one that you celebrate? Do you have this one?
I don't have a whole lot of Lennie Niehaus's music. I find it really works in context of the film, and then I find that there's one or two themes that I like to listen to after that, but I don't seek out his scores too much. But I do think it works incredibly well in the context of this film. And by the way, the music that plays in the teaser trailer is, according to IMDb's trivia page, Alan Hawkshaw's Best Endeavors, which was the long-standing theme music for Britain's Channel 4 News. Maybe that's why
it's terrible.
Didn't fit.
It's so terrible.
Let's use that news theme.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Well, Lennie Niehaus did a number of other Clint Eastwood films. He did Unforgiven. He did he's responsible for the love theme for the Bridges of Madison County. But also, let's see,
he's been with him for...
He's been with a long time. True Crime.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Alcatraz.
Whatever that's called.
Whatever.
Yeah, he was the orchestrator on that. I mean, he had been working with Peckinpah back in those days with the scores for those films, and I don't know how he kind of crossed over into working with Eastwood, but he eventually found Eastwood and started working with him. It looks like on Escape from Alcatraz is the first film that he...
When was what year was that, Escape from Alcatraz?
That was 79. 79.
Yeah.
And then he did some more work with him, but he came on. Looks like Pale Rider is his first full score with him, or is it
Tightrope, City Heat?
Tightrope. Yeah, Tightrope was not a Clint Eastwood directed film.
No,
but
no.
Maybe that's.
But so he's done a lot of stuff in this one. I think it's just a really nice. It's a solid, spooky, appropriate score.
Yeah.
All right. What other actor did you want to talk
about? Just another Richard Dysart connection with The Thing.
Oh.
We have dear Charles Hallahan as one of
McGill.
One of LaHood's gang here. It's hard to forget his head dropping off the table and crawling across the floor. I wondered if Dysart and he talked about that and how Hallahan's chest essentially bit off Dysart's arms in that film.
That's really funny. I was I don't mean this as a bit, but right as you said, no one can forget. I was going to say, I totally forgot. I totally forgot that was those two guys together that were doing The Thing.
Absolutely.
It was awful.
In all its gruesome, horrifying glory.
Those teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Glorious teeth.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. All right. What else you got? Are we done?
A little bit of trivia also tied to Richard Dysart that I think is fairly interesting. The train that he rides in on when he first makes his appearance toward the beginning of the film, that train is actually that whole train station was actually the same train station that was used again in Back to the Future 3. And oddly enough, Richard Dysart is in Back to the Future 3 as a salesman, and he's on the train. And that's where Doc Brown hears him over talking, and that's what spurs Doc Brown to hop off and go back into action. But it's the exact same set. As I found it very funny that 3 years later, Dysart was back in the train again.
That's actually really funny. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good stuff.
This was the highest grossing Western at the box office during the 80s. That's what I know.
This film, it was lucky that this film actually even got made because, Heaven's Gate had come out a few years beforehand and really essentially almost killed Westerns flat out. I mean, people were just, I think, not looking to make any more Westerns. And
is it Westerns or Chris Christopherson
that killed Heaven's Gate?
Right. Or killed. Yeah. Really?
What was it really?
What was it? I think if anything, that deserves further discussion for another time. I just don't want to just leave that there.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
But it did take a solid 5 years before Westerns really kicked in. In 85, there were 4 at least: Silverado, Rustler's Rhapsody, Pale Rider, and Lust in the Dust.
I haven't seen that one.
I missed that one as well. Luckily, I would say Pale Rider is the one that made the money, not Lust in the Dust
with
Paul Bartel.
Tab Hunter and Divine.
Yeah. He rode the West, the girls rode the rest. Together they ravaged the land.
Oh my gosh, Divine was in Hairspray and Female Trouble.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So luckily, this wasn't the Western that redefined the Westerns for the rest of the 80s. Oh my. So yeah,
it did pretty well.
It did pretty well for itself. I found that it cost just under $6.9 million to make, and it made about.
Was that including the prints and advertising, or is that the whole thing?
It wasn't. That was just the production budget. Okay. I couldn't find any other numbers. Right. Adjusted for $1985, that cost about $15 million to make. And then domestically, it made, I couldn't find anything internationally, but domestically, it made about $41.4 million. Adjusted is about not quite $90 million. So, for a modest budget film, it did pretty well for itself. Adjusted, it made $662,733.15 per finished minute.
And 15 cents.
Yep.
Excellent. I think that we should rank it.
I do too.
Let's do that. If you head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, you will find our top films list. And I think there should be now, 100? This should be 118?
Well, it's changed a little bit, right?
Right.
Should we mention that?
Well, we readjusted.
We readjusted our flick chart.
And we had trouble because, we do the film board once a month. We do a current film with the Gang of Thugs, and we realized that it was a little bit unfair to do these rankings where the Thugs would have to rank the current films against movies that some of them hadn't seen, which is, when we get into some of our obscure catalog that we've done on the regular show. So we split them, and now we have a film board flick chart, and we have a Next Reel flick chart. And that's what we're doing. So how many does that leave us with?
This is going to be the 116th film
116
on the Next Reel flick chart.
Okay. Which is actually about right, because we did have 2 episodes that were not As this is episode 118, but we had a couple of episodes that were not film episodes, didn't we?
Right.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
All right.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right,
for this.
Let's do it. Pale Rider or Gattaca?
Wow.
That's an interesting one right out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm in a little bit of context shock.
I like yeah, right. I like both of those films so much for such
very
different
reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I were going to sit down and just put on a film, it would likely be Gattaca.
Same here. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to get all judgy.
Pale Rider or The Parallax View?
I see. I would put on Pale Rider.
Me would too. Pale Rider or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
I'm a little torn, but it is Indiana Jones, so I will go Indiana Jones. Pale Rider or The Professional, a.k.a. Leon? I would do Pale Rider. Interestingly, both films about an older man with a younger woman.
Exactly.
Who's drawn to him. Yeah, that's actually quite interesting.
Who throws herself at him.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go Pale Rider. And I don't know, I may regret it.
I'm now regretting going Pale Rider. I may go with Leon.
Really? Okay, good. Let's go Leon. Let's go Leon.
What do I think about it?
Seriously.
I don't know.
It's hard, but Leon's a strong film.
It's just,
and I
there's
think that
some comedy elements to it that drive me nuts, but I think
the relationship between Leon and the girl, what's her name?
Matilda.
Yeah, Matilda. Forget it.
Yeah.
And Matilda is such a strong character.
Yeah. Pale Rider or Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? I would go Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Pure fun.
Om Nam Shivai. Om Nam Shivai.
Pale Rider or Pete's new foreign classic favorite, Yee, a 1 and a 2?
Pale Rider, please.
I will go Pale Rider. It's if nothing other than the length. Pale Rider or Compulsion? Well, there's a jump back to some old conversations.
We haven't ranked that one in a long time. I'm going to go Pale Rider, but I do enjoy the Compulsion. That was a surprise to me.
That really was. It was. Orson Welles is fantastic.
That monologue is.
Yeah. All right, 84 out of 116.
Hey, it broke 100.
Yep, it certainly did. Awesome.
Excellent. So this was the end of our Richard Dysart series of films. We do have one other VSE. Very special episode coming up, which we are just wrapping up, I promise. And that'll come out very shortly. We did. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to introduce it?
We tracked down Richard Dysart and had a wonderful and fun-filled conversation with him. And we're excited to present it as a bonus episode.
A bonus episode. So that'll be coming in the next week. And so that'll jump in the feed. Look for that shortly, and we'll have it up on the blog as well. Great conversation with an all-around awesome man.
Absolutely.
And so we're very much looking forward to that. But where do we go from here to our next film, Andy?
Well, this has been pretty exciting. As you know, we did our first listener's choice, and Steam Robot, a.k.a. Stephen Smart, won. And he has picked the wonderfully romantic film In the Mood for Love. I say that not having actually seen the film.
Yeah,
but
right.
In the Mood for Love is what we're going to be talking about next week. And I'm quite excited. This is one of those great films that everybody always is saying it's how good it is, and I still have it on my list of shame. So I'm finally excited to check it off the list.
Now, I think I have this one, and wasn't this part of sort of a spiritual trilogy?
I don't know if it's a spiritual
In the Mood
trilogy.
for Love, Days of Being Wild, and 2046.
Okay. Didn't know that. I knew that he basically shot this and 2046 back-to-back, same sets and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't realize that there was a third one in the mix. So
well, maybe I'm crazy and didn't do that, but I could have sworn that there was some connection, and we actually are going to be talking to the goodly, kindly Mr. Smart. He's going to give us a little introduction about why he thinks we should be talking about this film and why it's an important film to be included in our list. And so we will take on that very question, because this was one when he wrote in. He said specifically, I think, some time ago, that we should absolutely look at these films.
Right.
And so we'll see just how... Maybe we have 3 movies to watch before next week, is all I'm saying. So get ready. Get ready for that.
Good times.
Good talk, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Hey, much love to your family.
And much love to yours. It probably is going to be a direct-to-digital after it kind of goes through this limited release based on...
Are you okay? Did you swallow something living?
I think the succubus
you did. The succubus just... Whatever's going on your end is horrible.
Wow.
Are you okay?
So that's what it feels like. That was horrible. Not at all what I was hoping.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.